Welcome to Detectortesters Ask Paul session, coming to you from Excel FIREX 2019. Got a series of questions that have been sent in over the last few weeks, and I'm going to go through and answer those questions. First one is from Rafe of Safe Electric in Huntingdon. Rafe asks, "Hi Paul, what's the maximum working height for the solo height access poles and safe working angle?" Well, that's a great question, Rafe. Solo height access poles can be used up to 9 meters, and that's achieved by using a Solo 100 4-section telescopic and no more than 3 extension poles on top of it. That's the maximum we recommend, and that's subject to a risk assessment. In regards to angles of use, it's very difficult to judge an angle when you're using a set of poles, but if you are working up to 6 meters, if you drop an imaginary plumb line down from the detector to the floor in front, and your feet should never be more greater than 1.5 meters away. So that's for heights up to 6 meters. When you go from 6 meters up to 9 meters, there's only one way to use the poles, and that's in the vertical. They should only be used in the vertical. If you put them in any angle at all, you risk injuring yourself. So great question there, Rafe. It's worth adding that on the Detectortesters website, it's worth checking out. We've got a very short training course, which takes about 20-30 minutes to go through, and it's all to do with safe use of our solo height access poles, and it covers all the related actual items. So have a look on our website underneath training, and go for that training course, answer a few simple multi-choice questions, and you get a certificate at the end of it. Next question, Tom Price from Hyundai. Can you remind me the differences and when to use flammable and non-flammable aerosol smoke canisters? What Tom's referring to here is that back in the end of 2017, we had a change to our aerosol range because of the environmental F-gas regulations, and now we have 2 aerosols for use within our dispenser. We've got Solo A5, which is a flammable everyday aerosol, and we've got a more specialised Solo A10S, which is non-flammable, like the old product, like the old Solo A3 that actually replaced. When you use them, well, that's up to you. Some of the fire companies have got adverse to using flammable products, so they just constantly use all the time non-flammable aerosols. But being more specialised, it's a little bit more expensive. If you want to cut a few corners and cut some costs here, going down to the Solo A5 is a bit of a cheaper everyday product, and it's perfectly suitable for testing ionisation and optical detectors, as long as you use them within the dispenser. Both A5 and A10S are for use within the Solo 330 and 332 dispensers. You might actually go to a site, or when the site has a requirement for you not to use flammable aerosols. That's another requirement which may actually come in. So that's what it is regarding use of flammable and non-flammable aerosols. Next question from Bob Wales at BDI Fire. Hi Paul. Now that multi-sensors are included in 5839 Part 1 2017, can I test multi-sensor detectors using my old Solo kit with separate heat and smoke? Well, the short answer there, Bob, is yes, you can. 5839 prescribes 2 methods, or recommends 2 methods of testing. One is the sequential test, where you're testing each enabled channel in the detector at a time, and the other is a combination test. There are some quite key advantages by using a combination test, because by doing a combination test where you're combining the smoke and heat at the same time, the test can be carried out a hell of a lot quicker. When you do a sequential test, you start to hit into the integrating periods, or come across the integrating periods the detectors build in. So it will take longer to test because you're only presenting the detector with smoke or only presenting with heat at a time. So sequential test is always going to be acceptable, but a combination test is preferred. But you do need to make sure that the system that's under test gives separate channel notification. And by that, what we mean is that the panel indicates that the smoke channel's fine and the heat channel's fine. And if that is the case, then do a combination test. It's going to be a lot quicker, but please be aware that the only tester that on the market that can do that is the Testifire product. So hopefully that answers your question there, Bob. Terry Henderson, this is an interesting question, from White Rose Training Development Institute in South Africa. Our Our company is working hard to improve standards and professionalism in South Africa by developing new national fire detection qualification for the government, which covers maintenance of fire detection systems. What would be your recommendation for the basic testing kit or something similar for those used here in the government technical colleges, considering that we are now increasingly seeing multi-sensor detectors? A really good question. We don't get many questions from South Africa, and it's great to hear, Bob, you're working hard there to improve standards. The first thing that comes to mind would be, traditionally, would have been something like an 822 solo kit, which is a 6 metre kit, and an 823 9 metre kit, both based around the solo dispenser and separate heat tester. But since you're mentioning multi-sensors, I would say that probably the more appropriate is going to be a Testifire based kit, something based on one of the 1000, so something like a 9001 kit, which gives you the Testifire 1000 head, a set of poles gives you reach up to 6 metres, a bag, and also a removal tool. If you need to go above 6 metres and up to 9 metres, that's where the 9001 kit comes in. What I'll do is I'll leave a link below, Bob, to those kits, so you can actually have a look at those, and anybody else that's actually interested in that. But it was a good question. Graham Miller from Safe Services in Garda Shields of Scotland. Oh, this is a cracker. He says, "Hi Paul, are there any plans to update Testifire to include some of the nice features that the Solo 365 has, e.g. the LED light and the ASD adapter?" Well, as a manufacturer that's very progressive, we're always constantly coming out with new products. We're including lots of new ideas that not only we have, but also come from the customers as well. Things like the LED light will most certainly be included in all new future products, because it has proven itself to be of great value. Things like the ASD adapter. There may well be other new features as well that are coming along. So yes, we will definitely continue to add these to new products going forward. So thanks for that question, Graham. Next question, Dean Lovell from East West Connect in Greenford, London. Why does Testifire fail smoke detectors that Solo aerosol dispensers pass? Now, this is a question I've had so many times in the past, and it's particularly noticeable for the customers that are switching from using an aerosol canister across to Testifire. With an aerosol canister in a dispenser, the release is down to the actual user, whereas with Testifire, it's controlling the release of smoke. And what you will find with older, dirtier detectors, if you try hard enough with an aerosol canister, you can get them to pass, whereas Testifire will actually identify them and foul them. And every instance I've been involved with where that question's been raised and we've investigated it, the detector's either been beyond the manufacturer's stated life statement of, like, for example, 10 years, or in particular it's been dirty inside. So that's the reason behind the two. You've got a difference. They're both functional tests, but they do work in slightly different ways. And certainly we should be looking to drive out those old dirty detectors, because some of those are causing the false alarms. Next question is from Dan the engineer, who's somewhere on his travels in the world. I believe last time I caught up with him, he was in Bali, having a great time there sitting on the beach. Really interesting question here from Dan. He says, "Hi Paul, the latest update to 5839 Part 1 was very much focused on reducing false alarms. If we, the UK, want to actively reduce false alarms and with smoke detectors, why don't we carry out smoke sensitivity tests like they do in the USA, Canada and Australia? As a smoke sensitivity test will identify optical smoke detectors where sensitivity has increased and are more likely to cause false alarms." Brilliant question, Dan. Really good. This really dives straight into where a lot of the issues are that relate to fire detection. Yes, right, okay. First of all, smoke functional test is what most of our testers like Solo and Testifire do. We have a product called TrueTest that does a sensitivity test, and it measures the level of smoke obscuration that is required to activate a detector. TrueTest is specifically designed for testing the detectors in the American market and the Canadian market. Their devices have their smoke obscuration level measured in percent per foot, and TrueTest is calibrated to deliver measurements in percent per foot. All other smoke detectors around the world, including Australia by the way, all have used EN standard detectors where obscuration is in percent per metre. It's a bit tricky to do that, to convert between the two. It's not just a matter of getting a calculator out. There is no correlation between an UL detector and an EN detector, so it's not quite that straightforward. Also, we should mention that the aerosols that are used within TrueTest are now, again, these are the Aero 400 that we use, have come come underneath the F-gas regulations, and we're only really allowed to supply them to the American market going forward. So it would be really good if we could start using TrueTest to address this particular problem, but unfortunately it's not going to really be the ideal product for that. But as far as identifying what the actual issues are to do with false alarms, this certainly is one of them. So thanks for raising that, Dan. It's a really interesting question, and good luck with the rest of the travels. Okay, that brings me to the end of the questions for the Ask Paul 2019 series here at Excel in London. Here's me saying I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next Toolbox Talk tip, and as always, if you have been watching, thanks for watching.